So what do you know about sex trafficking?
I know there's a lot of it, and I know it's a problem. Other than that, pretty much.
What do you know about sex trafficking?
It's not good.
What do you know about sex trafficking?
um, it's really bad.
What do you know about sex trafficking?
Um, I honestly don't know that much about sex trafficking. I just know that it's a big issue.
What do you know about sex trafficking?
Um, Not a lot.
Hi, my name is Debbie, and I live in the suburbs of Phoenix with my family. I was one of the 1,000 girls who have been abducted or lured and made into a sex slave in none other than the United States. I was abducted from my home by one of my friends and 2 older men. They tied me up and threatened to kill me. They said if I made any noise or screamed, they would shoot me, so I just stayed quiet. After hours of driving around, I was taken to an apartment 25 miles from my house. There was still a gun pointed to my head. They were asking me where I wanted to be shot. They were messing around with the trigger, and I heard it click, but I was still alive in shock while they were laughing at me. I was drugged and gang raped. They said they wanted to take advantage of a 15-year-old girl. Men repeatedly entered the room and had their turn. I was trapped in the slums of Phoenix. I was once again tossed in a car for hours while still being raped, and after a while, we went to one of the men's apartments where I got put in a dog kennel for days. They were constantly abusing me to break me down, so they were in control. The men put out an ad on Craigslist that other men would find and come to the apartment and demand sex. And I had no other choice but to comply. The men that would come usually had families and wives and kids at home, so I asked them why they would want to come here, and they wouldn't answer. I didn't attempt to escape because there were constant threats. They had threatened to attack my family, and at that point I didn't care what happened to me as long as they were safe. After 40 days of captivity, the police found me in a drawer under a bed in the apartment.
What is sex trafficking? The coercion of an individual or maintained therein prostitute. Sex trafficking is a variety of trafficking and human trafficking. It has also always involved the force of prostitution of women, although it does fall upon men as well, and often children. This is the most common form of modern-day slavery.
When I was 15, I had my father. He was on drugs real bad. He was a crackhead, and also he was an alcoholic. He abused me from when I was 12 until I was 15. He raped me. I believe it was more than once, because when I was 12 and I used to visit him on the weekends up until I was 15, he used to beat me if I wouldn't smoke crack with him or drink with him. And he told me that he just didn't want to get high on his own, but I think it's more so he was always molesting me. I was staying with my friend Juanita, and she told me that she knows this guy that can help me to be a model, and was asking me was I okay with that, and I said yeah. I really wanted to pursue modeling. I can't remember how old I was, but I started wanting to be a model when I was a kid. I used to dream about it, like not only like in my dreams, but wake up dreaming like, yes, I want to be a model. This is what I want to do. I was 17 at the time when I met him, and I got in the adult entertainment business because of the fact that he asked me about it, and he told me the money would be used towards the modeling, and I believed him. When he told me about the adult entertainment business, I didn't understand that it was an upscale call girl. I wasn't even aware of the fact that it was prostitution. They used us young people because they can get older women to do what they want to do because they believe we're young and we're naive, and we're 9 times out of 10 they're right, and that's why they go for the younger people to target, because they know they're going to get someone their age to do what they're asking them to do, and they know that they can feed off of that. Everything I did as far as prostitution goes, he got all the money. I didn't keep nothing from him. And that's the crazy part of it all, because I really believed it was for the modeling. I really thought this was a real legit thing, and somehow I found myself into this dirty game that I really believed it was a real job of modeling, and it wasn't. He beat me. He had me in hotel rooms by myself for weeks, go hungry because I wouldn't obey what he wanted me to do. It's a trap. Once you're there, it's hard to get out of. It's really hard. I really thought that if I didn't leave, he probably was going to kill me, because I didn't want no longer to be a prostitute. So I had to ask myself, is this something I still want to do, or do I want out? And if so, I had a chance leaving and risking him coming after me and killing me, because either which way, he might end up killing me regardless. I have learned I was a victim. At the time, I didn't believe I was, because I was like, hey, I volunteered. But at the end of the day, I didn't volunteer. It's something I was tricked into, thinking I can turn out to be a model. So I have learned, like, I really didn't sign up for this.
Victims are sold to traffickers, locked up in rooms or brothels for weeks or months, drugged, terrorized, and raped repeatedly. This makes it easier for traffickers to control their victims. Captives are usually too afraid to speak out against their traffickers, even when they are provided an opportunity to escape. Traffickers are very organized, and many have a hierarchy system. Those who have more than one victim often have a bottom, who's at the top of the hierarchy system of prostitutes. The bottom victim herself has been trafficked the longest and who has earned her trafficker's trust. They may collect money from other victims, discipline them, seduce other youths into trafficking, and handles the day-to-day business for the traffickers. Traffickers represent every social and ethnic and racial group. Some perpetrators are involved with local street and motorcycle gangs. Other members are a large nationwide gang or criminal organization. Some have no affiliation. Traffickers are not limited to the male gender. Many women also run established rings. Traffickers use force, drugs, emotional tactics, and financial methods to control their victims. They are easily able to make a strong bond with young girls. They may promise marriage and a lifestyle that the youth did not have in their own life previously. They will make claims as if they love or need the victims, and that any acts that they are forced into are for their future together. Some traffickers use violence, like gang rape and different forms of abuse, to force the youth into working for them and remain under their control. If the youth have become addicted to drugs, the trafficker may supply them with the drugs as a means of control. Traffickers can also take their victims' identity forms, like birth certificates, passports, and driver's license. In this case, the youths would have no way to support themselves and will often return to being trafficked. These abusive methods used to control the victims both physically and mentally are related to the cases of Stockholm Syndrome. These victims who have fallen to abuse over a long period begin to feel attached to the perpetrator. This makes it difficult for law enforcement to breach the bond of control that the trafficker holds over the victim. The estimated number of children engaged in prostitution is 293,000. The average age of girls when they first become victims is 12 to 14. Boys and transgendered youth enter between the ages of 11 and 13. Most victims are runaways or thrown-away youths who live on the streets. These children may come from homes that are abusive or families that have abandoned them. They often become involved in prostitution to financially support themselves or to get money for things they feel they need, like drugs. Other youth are recruited through forced abduction, pressure from parents, or through deception between parents and traffickers. In this case, children are usually taken away from their families to different locations so that they are isolated from relationships other than from their trafficker and those in the same situation. The lifestyle of these children revolves around violence, forced drug use, and constant threats. For children and teens living on the streets, sex trafficking is an epidemic.
How do we prevent sex trafficking? We must learn to distinguish sex trafficking from other commercial sex operations. Unlike commercial sex trafficking induces or recruits young women into commercial sex using force or fraud. Minors under the age of 18 who work in commercial sex are considered to be victims of sex trafficking without regard to whether they entered the industry due to force, fraud, or coercion. Websites such as the Trafficking Resource Center include links to federal and other laws that deal with sex trafficking in the U.S. You can use these and other similar websites to research the issue and learn how to identify possible sex trafficking operations. Review posts on personal sites. Sex traffickers often use sites such as Backpage and Craigslist that offer free or anonymous personal ads. These ads may be used to find clients or to recruit new girls, in addition to looking at personal ads for escorts or companions. Also look at employment ads targeted towards young women. Take notes of patterns you see, including photos of younger-looking girls in front of similar backdrops or similar descriptions accompanying different images. If you see posts that you suspect were created by sex traffickers or include pictures of unwilling participants, flag the post so the website will
The human trafficking industry is estimated to generate around $150 billion annually. The industry spans the world, energized by the power of globalization. Due to globalization, the demand for cheap labor has greatly increased, creating a lucrative market for those involved in human trafficking. It's hard to obtain work visas and employ people through legal means. Many turn to hiring legal immigrants who are potentially the victims of human trafficking. There is human trafficking comprised of organized criminal networks, which are a lot of support services like drivers, hotel rooms, car services, and cell phone services. The role of the supply-side economics plays in perpetuating human trafficking. Trafficked slaves is promoted by factors like poverty, lawlessness, social instability, military conflict, environmental disaster, corruption, and the bias against females and minority ethnicities. Human trafficking is the second largest criminal enterprise in the world, earning exploiters more than $150 billion each year, according to a report released by the International Labor Organization in May 2014. With the potential of high monetary rewards with very low risk of punishment, the business of human trafficking has been growing. Profits from human trafficking have more than tripled over the past decade. Traffickers range from small-time solo operators to loose networks of criminals to highly sophisticated criminal organizations that operate internationally. Labor trafficking is not concentrated in a specific region or country, but rather globally. Washington State is on an international border, has an international airport, and has many rural areas east of the mountains where there is massive agriculture industry. Many victims in this state have been found in a variety of labor sectors. In 2000, Seattle faced a disturbing case of 18 illegal Chinese immigrants smuggled in through ports. The Port of Seattle is the 8th most active port in the U.S., with 3 international container terminals. Washington's agriculture industry experiences a high of labor trafficking and is typically unnoticed due to the lack of understanding how trafficking works in this sector. Victims with limited skills or opportunities spend hours a day doing work in the fields. The demand for cheap, low-skilled labor draws people to jobs within the agricultural sectors. Washington State is a focal point for labor trafficking because its dependency on agricultural workers.